Lecture 3. We're going to study the book of Matthew, and we're going to go through a Jewish perspective on the book of Matthew and an objective look at the messianic prophecies quoted by him. Let's open up to the first page of the New Testament. So, anyone have a New Testament here? Okay. This is the book. We're in the Gospel according to Matthew. This is the book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac, and Isaac begot Jacob, and Jacob begot Judah and his brethren. And Judah begot Perez and Zara of Tamar, and Phares begot Esrom, and Esrom begot Aram, so forth. And Aram begot Aminadab. Yeah, there you are. Man, your great-great-great-grandson has caused a lot of trouble in this world. Salmon begot Boaz. Boaz begot Obed of Ruth, and Obed begot Jesse. See, the New Testament claims that Jesus is a descendant of Jesse. That's why he put a check mark here. Okay? Jesse begot David, the king, and David, the king, begot Solomon. Okay, and Solomon begot Rehoboam, and so forth and so forth. And then we get down all the way to verse 16. Or let's start from 15. And Eliud begot Eleazar, and Eleazar begot Mathan, and Mathan begot Jacob. And Jacob begat Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who is called the Christ. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations, and from David until the carrying away into Babylon are 14 generations, and from the carrying away into Babylon to Christ are 14 generations. Okay? Now, not many people know this, some do. Luke 3 also gives a genealogy of Jesus. Let's open up to that. Okay. And Jesus himself began to be about 30 years of age, being the son of Joseph, who was the son of Heli, who was the son of Mathat, who was the son of Levi, who was the son of Melchi, which was the son of Yana, who was the son of Joseph, and so forth and so forth. It goes on and on and on. If you're not catch up on the names, but the names in Matthew 1 and the names in Luke 3, different.
Yeah.
One? So I mean,
didn't you say we had to have two accounts to make a point?
So what we have here is an apparent contradiction.
Right.
I like to be fair. Just because something seems to contradict itself doesn't mean that it's a contradiction. Right. Okay? So Jesus, his father is Joseph, is agreed by both accounts. Okay? But in Matthew 1, Joseph had a father named Jacob, or Jacob begot Joseph. And in Luke 3, Joseph was the son of Heli. Okay? So maybe Jacob and Heli are the same person. They just had two nicknames. Well, Jacob and Heli's fathers are different. Mathan and Mathat. Okay, it's different names. You can say it's kind of close. But when you go back all the way up to genealogy, we see that Jesus, according to Matthew chapter 1, is a descendant of Solomon and then David. And according to Luke chapter 3, Jesus is a descendant of Nathan and then David. David's son Nathan. Anybody have a solution? There must be. I mean, it's obvious. It's written here. It's an obvious contradiction. It seems like a contradiction. Any solution of why there is a contradiction in the New Testament? Smiling. You want to give an example?
I've been taught since I was old enough to read that there were two different lines of descendancy.
Through the same person?
From sons of David.
So?
Different sons of David.
In other words, Nathan had Levi and Solomon had Eleazar.
Right. But how is it that Joseph has a different father in both accounts?
It's like the grandmother had 3 names.
No, but like his grandfather and his great-grandfather are all different.
I understand.
The lines don't match up. Everything from Nathan to Jesus is different in Luke 3, from Solomon to Jesus in Matthew 1.
That Mathan and Mathat were
Not too many people knew how to read and write back then.
I'll tell you what I was taught. I was taught that the reason that the accounts don't actually match exactly is because witnesses would not always give the same account of the same incident.
Okay, so you're saying that a car wreck happens. So one person says, no, he hit him. And the other person saw across the street, no, he hit them. So it's expected that you're going to have 2 differing accounts. But that's hard for Christians to accept that, because then that's like the New Testament is like Scripture. How can Scripture be wrong twice?
But it was the Christian that taught me that. Church.
So they're saying that it's a mistake, it's obvious, and it'll be cleared up in the future.
That was their way of
It's because
justifying
it actually makes it more real, because this is a witness account.
Okay, all right. You're saying the contradiction actually kind of makes it even more believable, because if it matched, then how do they know they just didn't copy notes from each other? Yes?
On the other hand, as the Jews are wont to say, if they are 2 different descendancies, it would be obvious that they came back together at Mathan and Mathat, which is
The same
technically
person?
the same name or the same person, and these 2 names, Jacob and Eli,
Eli? Okay.
could be the same person.
Okay, you're saying they're the same
It's a
person.
possibility.
But the problem with that theory is that it says Eleazar gave birth to Mathan and Mathan gave birth to Jacob. A person can only have one father unless you're a Democrat. So Eleazar begot Mathan and Mathan begot Jacob. And you're saying Jacob and Eli and Mathat might be the same person. But how is it that Mathan will have 2 different fathers? So that doesn't clear up the contradiction.
This is true.
What?
This is true.
So, what are there are Christian apologetics. You don't know this? If you don't know this, why don't you know it?
Because Paul said, do not trouble yourself with countless and endless genealogies.
So some say that actually the one is actually Miriam's.
Okay, thank you. We got a Christian apologist here. Thank you. That's an answer that Christians give. Matthew 1 was talking about Joseph's parents, and Luke 3 was talking about Mary's presence. But because you can't put a woman in a genealogy,
Right.
they put Joseph instead of Mary. So Heli is the father of Mary, according to that Christian apologetics. But the New Testament doesn't say that. That's interpolation. We don't know that that's the correct answer.
We're supposed to trust the New Testament. That's the
Yeah,
point.
it never contradicts itself, right? But all right, so that's one example.
Well, people are trying to apologize for it all the time because
Apologize for it.
I know,
Apologetics, I get it.
I know that was the pun. So, like, seemingly, it seems like it's making excuses.
Yeah, it seems that way, but not necessarily.
Right. It's not necessarily. If you go in, let's give the benefit of the doubt in this case. If you go to outside sources to check the genealogy of Mary, there are some other sources that parallel that. Now, if you want to go on this basis to say that the New Testament is false, then it doesn't hold water, because you can quote lots of other sources. I'm not saying that's what you said, but I'm saying as a point of reference, if you want to say the New Testament has contradictions, this is not a good basis, because there's a lot of sources that parallel that and support actually the idea of.
I know. See, Christians are not stupid. I mean, when you get down to it, I mean, there are a lot of Christians who are ignorant. If you ask them this question, they would not know that answer. But there are Christian scholars, and they have answers for these things. I want you to know the answers, okay? So one idea presented by Larry is that Luke 3 is talking about Mary's descendants, and Matthew 1 is talking about Joseph's descendants. There's one more, and there's another answer. Brought forth by a historian, a church father historian, Eusebius.
Yep.
So Eusebius said this. Both genealogies are talking, this is Eusebius, this is a church father. Both are talking about Joseph's descendants. Now, Matthew 1 says that Jacob begot Joseph, whereas Heli was the father of Joseph. Eusebius says that there was a Levirate marriage, and you can't tell it in the genealogies. He's saying, who knows what a Levirate marriage is? Okay, so a Levirate marriage goes like this. Ibumim in Hebrew. If I'm a man and I'm married to a woman, okay, and I have no children, and I die, God forbid, I have no descendants now. My name has been erased from Israel.
Right.
So my brother is supposed to marry my widow and have a child.
Your name.
So my brother is the physical father of the child. That would be Jacob begot Joseph. Okay? But the actual legal father, according to Levirate marriage, is Heli.
Right.
Heli was the father of Joseph in the book of... So there are answers to these contradictions. And so then, okay, so if Jacob and Heli are brothers, how is it that Mathan and Pathat are different fathers? Because they're brothers, right? Well, they have two separate fathers because there was a woman who had a husband that gave birth to Heli, and then he died, and she remarried someone else and had another brother named Jacob. So Heli and Jacob are actually half-brothers, and that explains why they have different fathers going all the way back. Yes?
Okay, there still poses a big problem.
What's the
Because
problem?
Now you have two individual accounts that are supposedly both true, but they're both different. So you don't have two matching witnesses, which would validate his bloodline.
Well, it's each one's bringing, according to Eusebius, each one's bringing forth one the legal heritage of.
Okay.
Trust me, I'm not pro New Testament. Okay, I'm just want to be fair.
Yeah.
And one's bringing forth his legal heritage, and one's bringing forth his physical heritage.
My question was directed at, doesn't Judaism itself, as it's following through 3,500 years, but at this point, much less than that, 1,500 years of history, they're not just going to say, oh, you're a Jew, okay, come on. No, they have to have it proven, and if this is their only validation source, and they've only got two witnesses, and both of them are different, regardless of what the reasoning is, they're not just going to say, hey, come on, be our king. It doesn't work that way.
So you're saying there's not two witnesses. So Matthew and Mark should have brought forth the first one, and then Luke and John should have brought forth the second genealogy, if anything.
Something fair, at least.
Okay, I understand. Point taken. All right. It seems that Eusebius is the correct one as far as historical church father. And actually there really is no basis beyond maybe some sources that Daniel was talking about that talk about Luke 3 being the descendants of the mother.
You use the term church father. What church?
Well, okay, that's just the scholarly term for anybody who believed in Jesus in the first 3 centuries.
Right.
That's all I mean by church fathers. I don't believe. You can disagree if there was a church or not, but that's just what they're called in scholars. Eusebius, nonetheless, he believed in Jesus, and he was a historian, and he brought forth this. He wrote what was called the ecclesiastical history, and he brings forth this in his book. You can find this explanation on YouTube. But no, not everyone knows that explanation. But here's the problem. It doesn't matter, because if you believe the New Testament is true, you believe that Jesus is the begotten Son of God.
Right.
Joseph is not Jesus' father. So even if both genealogies can be reconciled with each other, it's talking about a person that Jesus isn't physically related to in either case.
Right.
And moreover, let's say that Luke 3 is talking about Mary's genealogy. But Mary's his only physical descendant. Mary is the great granddaughter of Nathan,
Right.
who's the son of David. But the monarchy has to come through Solomon.
Right. Specifically Solomon, not Nathan.
Let me give a verse to support that. In 1 Chronicles chapter 22, verse 9 through 10, but you will have a son. God's talking to David. You will have a son who will still be who will be a man of peace and rest. And I will give him rest from all his enemies on every side. His name will be Solomon. So God's telling David who his heir is going to be. And I will grant Israel peace and quiet during his reign. He is the one who will build a house for my name. He will be my son. God says that King Solomon is God's son. He will be my son, and I will be his father, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom over Israel forever. Through Solomon exclusively.
Right.
So no matter if you take Eusebius's explanation of the genealogies, or the other explanation that Luke is talking about Mary, it doesn't qualify Jesus to be a descendant of King David and King Solomon. So already on the first page of the New Testament, the Jewish people cannot accept Jesus, and therefore, number 6, according in Jewish eyes, doesn't even apply to Jesus.
Right. I mean,
But don't trust me, look it up yourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
You say that according to this verse, it says all kings will come from Solomon.
Yes. Not only this verse, there's actually 3 or 4 other verses that affirm that the king has to come from Solomon. Please look at, if you want in your own time, 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 12 through 16. 1 Chronicles chapter 17, verses 11 through 14. 1 Chronicles chapter 28, verses 6 through 7. And Psalm 89, verses 29 through 38.
Okay.
All of these verses affirm that the monarchy has to come through Solomon. And that's how monarchies work.
Right.
Monarchies is always passed from father to son, son to father, in Israelite monarchy. But then, that's how monarchy. We know historically that King David was king, King Solomon was king,
Right.
and King Solomon's son was king. All right, we know that.
That happened already.
That we know that
Right.
the monarchy
Right.
is descended from Solomon. All right, I don't want to dwell on this any longer, but
Thanks a lot.
but in any case, well, my point is this: if Jesus is not a descendant of David, then he can't even apply for the job.
Yeah.
That's all I'm trying to say. All right, and
He's not a descendant of Solomon, you mean?
right. Also, if he's not a descendant of Solomon, he cannot be a candidate for Messiah. 1 Timothy 1 verse 4. This has plagued believers for a long time, even in the New Testament. And 1 Timothy says, "Neither give heed to fables and endless genealogies, which minister questions." These things question your faith,
right.
rather than godly edifying, which is in the faith.
That's funny.
So, it sounds like, to me, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Right. Yeah, right.
It's hard. This has plagued, and that's why Eusebius had to come up with a solution to this. All right. So,